Hello and welcome back to what I wished I'd known about self-publishing before I got started. I am Karlie with Dragon Key Press, and in light of it being tax season, at least in the United States, I figured it would be a really great time to talk about self-publishing and taxes. Now, before I get too far in this, I do want to make this disclaimer. If and to the extent that this podcast's contents contains any tax advice, I am required by the Internal Revenue Services Circular 23031 CFR Part 10 to advise you that such tax advice is not a formal legal opinion and is not intended or written to be used by you and may not be used by you for the purpose of avoiding tax penalties that might be imposed on you, or for promoting, marketing, or recommending to another party any transactions or matter addressed herein. That being said, I'm going to give you my own experience and some added advice in regards to tax with your small business, because let's face it, as a self-publishing author, you are automatically a small business, and you are probably self-employed, which means you are subject to self-employment taxes. Now, the best way to help prepare yourself for the craziness that is the tax maze, because let's face it, the tax laws are so crazy and they constantly seem to change, is to do one of several things. Make sure you actually are keeping record of all of your expenses, all of your earnings, and anything else that may pertain to your business, as well as making sure it stays organized, making sure you have registered in your respective area for any doing business as, any tax-related certifications you may need, licenses, etc. Because some places require you to have a tax certification of some kind to collect sales taxes and require you to do sales taxes. Not all states, counties, etc. have the same requirements, so make sure you look into what those requirements are for your area. Some are more crazy than others, some less crazy than others, but it's on you to make sure you know what those are. So if you can, look it up, request information, so forth, etc., so that you are aware of what those are. Other things that you should probably have in advance is your resale certificate, if it's required in your area, or a seller's license, business license, as some call it. Already mentioned you're doing business as, or DBA, sometimes known as a fictitious business name. And of course, if you can, get your employee identification number through the IRS, unless you intend to use your social security number as that number. You can do either, but if you become more than just a sole proprietorship, you are going to need that EIN from the IRS. Okay, here's some things that if you have not been keeping track of, you probably should start. Any receipts for all expenses, and yes, you do need some kind of copy, be it digital or paper or both. I do both. Any royalty statements. If you're doing print on demand, these are going to be available through whatever service you are using to do said print on demand. And it doesn't matter if you make above the minimum to report to the IRS or not. Keep these on hand as a record to proof of how much you have or have not made. And this includes any other places you may sell your books for royalties, etc. Keep track of any sales slips and receipts for direct sales of your books. Yes, you need to keep receipts and a running tally of what you sell and how much you sell them for, especially if you have any type of tax laws that require you to do so in your area. Remember, it's not just a federal tax you may end up having to pay, but a state, possibly a county, and even also possible a city tax. So don't skimp on this. Keep a record of all of your sales, especially direct sales, because those are the hardest ones to keep track of because you have to do it instead of having some other entity do it for you. Keep track of appointments by putting them in an appointment book or calendar, anything related to your business, be it in-person events, conferences, etc., any public appearance. Keep track of that and make sure you write down any mileage accrued to get to and from said events. As proof that you are going to any writers' conferences, if they have brochures or any type of literature that proves you were there, keep it. Any events or shows that are business related, keep something that proves you were there so that you can add that as a tax write-off. This includes business cards and manuscript critiques collected at conferences. Thank you notes from libraries or schools you may have attended under the capacity of an author. Fan emails, believe it or not, because this is proof you are actually reaching out there to people with your product, which is you and your books. Any contest entries and notifications you may receive from them as proof you are actively doing something with that. Correspondence with any freelancers, whether or not they are hired. Letters from agents and publishers, including rejections, because this is proof that you're actually doing something. Bank and credit card records that are associated with your business. This does not include personal stuff. A little side note here, and I think I mentioned this in a previous video, it is very much recommended that you get a separate bank account for your business so that your personal finances and your business finances are not together. If that's not possible right now, try to have a separate checking or savings account where you do all your businesses from. Otherwise, do the best you can. But if you're getting an account under your business name, your imprint name, whatever, you will have to get that doing business as a business license or such. Check with your bank for any type of qualifications for such, but just know that if you want it in your business's name, you're going to have to get something to prove that you have that business. Keep any printouts of PayPal summaries or other things, such as Squarespace sales, etc., because these will prove what you have paid or have been paid through PayPal or whatever services. Any W-9s and 1099s, and any sales tax returns. These are all going to be imperative when you file your taxes. Now, a quick little thing. Your writing income will include receipts from royalties, whether they are paid by check or an electronic transfer into your bank account or any other electronic means, direct sales such as at book fairs, and speaking fees. Anything you earn under your writing banner is income. Keep that in mind. Now, if your net income, which is basically the total of all of your revenues, your income, minus your deductions from self-publishing is $400 or more in any calendar year, you may be required to pay self-employment tax on your self-publishing income. Just know that this kind of varies depending on where you are, state, and so forth. So keep in mind that if you make more than $400, possibly $600, you may be owing some taxes on that if you haven't paid any. This includes the employer and employee portions of Social Security tax and Medicare tax. So if your publishing income, for example, exceeds $1,000 per year, you may be required to pay quarterly estimated tax, especially if it's a consistent amount that you get. But most self-published authors, sadly, won't get to that level, so for the most part, you won't have to worry about it. Now, the deductibles are things that you can take away from the amount you earned because this is money you had to spend for your business. These are things like office supplies and postage, costs of writing and research books, magazine subscriptions that actually have to do with writing. Sorry, Playboy or Home Living magazines don't count. Telephone charges, and if you can have a separate phone for your business, by all means go for it. Otherwise, do the best you can muddling, figuring out based off your business and personal use on the phone. Printing costs for business cards, bookmarks, postcards, or any promotional materials, advertising costs, costs for software such as design software, video editing, manuscript editing, and any type of analytical stuff you use for your business. Fees and royalties paid for fonts, images, music, and other content. That one kind of goes into if you have to purchase specific fonts and the right to use them, because not all fonts are free. Any music you may purchase to use for, say, a teaser trailer for your book or things like that, or images that you might have to buy through different stock photo images for your cover or other things. If you have any writing club dues, those count as a deduction, as well as website hosting and online backup costs. Subscription costs for things like Hootsuite, MailChimp, etc., or other web-based services you use for your business count as deductibles. Payments to freelancers and the like, such as editors, copy editors, designers, web designers, and publicists, can be deducted from your gross income. Research expenses, including travel to and from, the cost of books you give away to reviewers or in promotional giveaways. And yes, you can use the retail price on that one. Contest entry fees, copyright registration fees, and a portion of your car and home expenses based off of how much you use them in regards to your business. Now, there are lots of ways you can totally do the tax thing, but best practices: keep your receipts and all of your business expenses and earnings reports in a safe location that is not one of those safe, oh crap, where is it? But a filing cabinet, a folder right there by your computer or on your computer, as we can print our receipts and scan our receipts and get digital receipts, and hey, isn't life wonderful? But keep track of them, keep them organized. My experience with taxes filing the last couple of years is that they like to do it by categories based off of office supplies, utilities, and things like business meals, entertainment during business trips, and there's a lot of different categories you can actually put it all into, including your fees for various associations, clubs, etc. So keep that in mind. It has kind of varied from year to year, but if you can keep them all in one place, organize them by month and then by type, so when it comes time to file, you aren't as unprepared as you could be. I've had to recalculate all of mine via category, via month and category before, and it's a pain in my derriere. So keep that in mind. And if you have deductions that are greater than anything that you have made, chances are good you're going to get a better tax refund. That's been the case with me most of the time. I usually end up spending more than I make. That's the cost of business. But you need to make sure you actually have proof that you are treating this as a business, that you are actively going out there and trying to do something with it. Otherwise, it falls under the hobby law, which is not to be confused with Hobby Lobby. This means that there are certain deductibles and other things that you technically cannot count towards credits and or deductions, because hobby is different than an actual business. Business, you must have an active income of some kind, and whereas hobby is just like, I'm going to piddle around with it. I'm not really going to try and market myself and put myself out there. And yes, there are times when years are very lean and times when years are really great. They keep that into consideration and have kind of this formula based off of how many active years and less active years as what considers you a hobbyist as compared to a professional business. But again, keep that in mind and make sure you understand the different tax laws for your respective areas. Another thing to keep in mind, they will ask on your tax forms about any insurance or other types of things that you may have in regards to your business. I haven't had the opportunity to have any of myself, but if you use such tax services as the Cash App, which is what I usually use, and no, I'm not endorsing them, or any of those other ones, TurboTax, where you do self, etc., it usually is pretty good about walking you through everything that you need to know and what you can deduct and what you can put in there. So just try to have all the information handy and ready to go at one time, at the same time as any W-2s, etc. that you may have. If you're having a professional do it, make sure you have everything as organized as you can and ready to go. Those services, of course, will require you to pay money, but I've heard that it is not a bad thing to go that route because they can actually look for potential deductions and stuff you may not be aware of. On my end, for the most part, though, I just do it myself because I'm impatient and I don't want to wait for somebody to come through all my finances. It's up to you how you want to do it. Just know that the amount of stuff you have to keep on hand and keep track of can be kind of overwhelming, especially if you have a very bad organization system. Mine's kind of crazy. I throw all the receipts in one area and then at the last minute, I organize them by month and category and hope and pray that it's the way they're going to do it that year. But taxes actually don't have to be as crazy sauce as that sounds. They don't have to be haphazard or scary. They're really not as scary as most people think. And as long as you can read and follow instructions when filling out your tax return forms, it's actually not as bad as people might make it out to be. You are no longer in the easy call category for the 1040 whatever. You are now a complicated tax return, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. Just know that you will have to fill out some more forms and wait for a few more forms and or possibly print off a few more forms just because, hey, you're a business now, and as a business, you just got more to do. If you want to just keep it as a hobby type thing, then that's totally on you, but make sure you look up the laws and regulations for that as well in your area. I don't know how much this has been helpful to you. I've been kind of generalizing and throwing in a little bit of my own experience with all of this. But if you have any questions about how all of this works or anything like that, I will do my best to answer them. Please note this is not any type of legal advice in regards to that. I'm not qualified for that, and if you do have questions that are of a more legal nature, etc., by all means, find an expert, somebody certified to be a public accountant, tax return, something or other. Don't ask me if it's going to be legal loopholes, etc., because I don't know, and I wouldn't tell you even if I did. That being said, I hope you gain some insights, some knowledge, learn something new, so forth, etc. I am Karlie with Dragon Key Press. I hope you will continue with us, review, etc., and I will try to stay up to date with anything new that comes around. Happy tax season, and I hope you get some back.